In this way, it seems that the striving by way of the heart of Venerable Ajaan Khao progressed steadily. His mindfulness and wisdom gradually and steadily spread and branched out until it was infused into the heart, and they became one and the same thing. Whatever his bodily posture or activity, he maintained his effort with mindfulness and wisdom present in his striving for Dhamma, and it seems that his heart was bold and courageous, having lost all fear of those things which arouse and maintain thoughts and emotional states, aramana, which used to be his enemies. He was also certain of the path leading to freedom from dukkha, and he had no doubts about it, even though he had as yet not actually attained freedom. The elimination of avidya. One evening, after he had swept the ground, he left the hut where he was living to go for a wash. He saw the rice growing in the fields, and how it was golden yellow and almost ripe. This immediately made him think and question. This rice has sprouted and grown because there is a seed which caused it to grow. The heart that endlessly leads one to birth and death should also have something that acts as a seed within it in the same way as the rice plants. If that seed in the heart is not destroyed entirely, it is bound to lead to further births and deaths going on endlessly. Now, what is this seed in the heart? What could it be but the kilesas, avidya, tanha, and upadana? He went on thinking and searching into this problem, holding up avidya as the target of his research, examining it, going towards the future, then returning towards the past, going forward and then backwards, with intense interest, wanting to know the true nature of avidya. He went on searching and investigating in the field of avidya and the heart, throughout the night, without let-up. At dawn, just as it was beginning to get light, his wisdom was able to break through to a conclusion. Then avidya fell away from the heart without any remainder, and the contemplation of the rice stopped at that point when the rice was ripe, never to sprout again. His investigation into the citta also stopped as soon as avidya fell down, after which the citta became ripe in the same way as the rice became ripe. At this point it was clearly evident to him that the citta had stopped creating any more births into the various realms of existence. What remained made him full of admiration and satisfaction, and this was the complete and utter purity of the citta in his hut in the midst of the mountains, where he was supported and taken care of by the forest people. As soon as the citta had managed to go beyond the tangled jungles of the round of kilesas, kilesavatta, there arose the most wonderful thing to him alone as the dawn came. Then the sun began to shine its rays on the forest, while the heart began to get brighter and brighter as it left the realm of avidya and went towards the wonder of Dhamma, where it reached vimutti, freedom, at the same time the sun rose. It truly was a most auspicious and wonderful occasion. After this supreme, auspicious, and blessed moment had gone by, it was time for him to go Paṭipadā. While he was walking away from this place of such great blessings, he looked back at the little hut which had provided him with such happiness and such wonders, and he looked all around him and saw how everything appeared to have become superb and blessed in sympathy with the heart, which was entirely and completely wonderful throughout, although in fact all these things were just there in accordance with their own nature as usual. While on Paṭipadā, his heart was filled with Dhamma, and when he looked at the local people of the forests and hills who had looked after him, it seemed almost as if all of them were beings who had come down from the heavens. In his citta he reflected on how good, how virtuous, and how valuable they had been to him, so much so that it would be impossible to describe the extent of their virtue. Metta and compassion arose in him for these heavenly forest people, and he could not help but spread out the metta in his citta as a dedication to them, as he passed by them all along the way, until he reached the vicinity of the place where he was staying, which was a place of such happiness. While he was arranging the deva-like food which the hill people had put into his bowl, his heart was full of Dhamma. He did not turn his thoughts to the food as he had always done in the past, letting it bring him some pleasure, but he merely ate it as that which the body depended upon for its maintenance. He said, "Since the day I was born, this was the first time that I had ever experienced the body and mind, dhatu kantha, in perfect harmony with the chitta heart, but it is quite impossible to explain it. All I can say is that it was the most wonderful and unique experience, and it became the most outstanding event of my life, which left a deep and lasting impression on my heart. After this world-shaking event, when the sky and ground collapsed and the wheel of samsara, the vartachakra, in the heart broke up and disappeared, all the elements and khanthas, as well as every part and aspect of the chitta, were each and all free to conform to their own natural state. They were no longer enslaved and forced into service by anything, so the 5 indriya and the 6 ayatana would continue to function and do their duties without any dispute or contention disturbing them, which had previously been their normal state, until such time as the elements and khandhas are no more. The dispute which he refers to is the disharmony between internal and external things when they come together, which gives rise to gladness or sorrow that then turns into the arising of sukha and dukkha. All these are interconnected like the links of an endless chain going on forever. The disputes within the citta, which are far more numerous and disturbing than those externally in the world, all stopped and were peacefully settled from the moment the court of justice was built and completed in the heart. This endless tendency to create inappropriate disputes, which used to seize the citta and use it as a floor on which to dance, to quarrel, and to argue, never giving it any time to be calm and quiet, because avidya tanha, the boss, directed and ordered it to work to cause turmoil and confusion of countless different kinds, then all dissolved into a joyful, harmonious state of calm and peace. It turned into a world that is free and empty within the citta, where the superb and most excellent truths of Dhamma, Vidya Dhamma, are produced and arise for the delectation of the realm of the citta king, in place of the former state of anti-Dhamma. Affairs both externally and internally then proceeded smoothly in accordance with Dhamma, without being harassed and disturbed by an enemy. So the eyes saw, the ears heard, the nose smelt, the tongue tasted, the body felt things cold or hot or soft or hard, and the heart received and knew the various supporters of perceptions, aramana, in the normal way, without distorting and altering everything as it used to, by making out that right is wrong, that being shackled is freedom, that what is bad is good, that ghosts are people, that virtuous bhikkhus are evil ghosts, preta, and conversely that evil ghosts are good people. For this is what the lord of anti-Dhamma, who had the power to dictate actions, used to do when he was in power. Now I can sit down and rest peacefully, and whether I live or die, I have complete happiness. This one here is genuinely out of dukkha and out of danger, without any thread of attachment of any sort by which it is bound." This was the aphorism that Venerable Ajaan Khao exclaimed in his heart at that time. Venerable Ajaan Khao was another of Venerable Ajaan Mun's followers who stripped away all dukkha and got rid of all dangers from his heart in Chiang Mai province. He said, "The place where I practiced the way until I reached freedom from dukkha within me, the little hut which gave me shelter where I could practice and strive and also rest my body, the place where I walked Jangama, the place where I sat in samadhi meditation by day and night, and the village where I went out for Paṭipadā to get food for maintaining the body while staying in that district, all made a great impression on me which went deep into my heart in an inexplicable way, and far more so than any other place. This has remained buried in my heart right up to the present day, and my memory of it has never become faded or indistinct, nor has it become insipid or commonplace. From the moment when the wheel of samsara, the Vartajaka, was demolished and fell away from my heart, destroyed by striving, that place changed and became the abode of supreme happiness in all situations at all times. It is as if I were in the presence of the Lord Buddha at the place of his enlightenment, and everywhere where he practiced striving for Dhamma, and all uncertainty about the Lord Buddha was swept away. Even though he entered Parinibbana a long time ago as reckoned by the usual conventions of time, yet it is as if the impression of him is permanently imprinted on my heart, without fading after the time of his Parinibbana. All uncertainty about Dhamma was swept away, as to whether it is much or little, profound or shallow, and gross or subtle, which the Lord bestowed on all beings. He saw that all of those Dhammas are permanently established in this one heart, and that it is completely filled with Dhamma, not being deficient in any part. All doubt and uncertainty disappeared concerning the Savaka Sangha, who are Supartipanno and who are pure. For these three jewels, Ratana, are fused into one in the heart which lives with Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, each of which are pure and integrated together as one Dhamma. From that one moment I became completely contented, and had no concerns or anxieties, and there was nothing that could act as a burden and deceive my heart. Whatever situation I am in, I am my own master in that situation, and nothing remains that orders me about or creeps in and asks for its share to eat and to use, like a parasite, as it used to when I was living with a beggar all the time without realizing it. Now it wanted this, then it wanted that. All the time this is how it was in all situations. Where this Acharya talks of wanting this and wanting that, he is talking about the kilesas which makes one feel deficient, in want, and never having enough. For this is the way their inherent nature works. Once they have become powerful and established their position over the heart of a person or animal, they are bound to demand or beg incessantly, for this is their natural way of acting. They do so by inciting one to think like this, to speak like that, or to act in various ways according to their power incessantly. If one doesn't have the Dhamma to block this leakage which comes from the stubborn demanding and begging of this gang of kilesas, one is likely to be divided up or spoiled so that they can eat one up until there is nothing left. It can even get to the point where one has not enough virtue left to keep one going in one's present state of life, to enable one to be born again in the future as a good person with moral principles. Whatever form of life and situation one is then born into, it is bound to be the wrong place and the wrong situation, where one will not be able to get the contentment of heart in one's state of birth that one ought to get from a life in which one has made the effort throughout one's life to be born into such a state of contentment. Then one may be said to have both lost one's capital as well as getting no interest from it. In other words, one who is heedless and complacent gives power just to the kilesas to take charge of the house and look after the chitta without any protection or resistance to them at all. Then they grab and take until he has nothing left, as we have already described above. But one who has got rid of all his debts and put an end to the untidy mess in his heart continues to live happily in all situations in his khanthas in which he lives. When their life is at an end, he drops the burden of the khanthas, and there remains just the purity of Buddha as his treasure throughout. This is the ultimate and eternal end of all dukkha, a wonderful ending and a moment which has ultimate value, greater than anything in the 3 realms of existence in the universe. It is quite different from existence in all relative worlds of supposition, samadhi, where, in their various ways, beings want birth, or at least most of them do so, and with their eyes wide open, and they are not in the least interested to consider the dukkha which is bound to come as a consequence of that birth. The truth is that birth and dukkha cannot be separated, and dukkha is still bound to be there, even in those cases where it is minimal. The wisest of men are therefore afraid of birth more than death, which is in contrast to most of us who fear death more than birth, while in fact death is only a result of its basic cause, which is birth. This fear of death is a fear that is in complete opposition to the basic principles of nature, and it comes about because people have no interest in searching and tracing out the truth about death. Therefore they resist it, and dukkha is with them all the time. If the wisest of men had kilesas of the kind which would make them ridicule and laugh at others' foolishness, they would probably not be able to contain themselves, and may have to let it all out to their heart's content when they see almost everyone in the world setting themselves against the truth with determination, and this they do without ever looking around or searching for the basic principles of truth. But in fact these men are truly wise and worthy to be so called, and they do not act in the usual way of the world. In fact, they generally have metta and compassion for the world, and give help by teaching the way. As for those who are beyond all hope, they let them go their way, as there is nothing that they can do to help them. Venerable Ajaan Khao was one who transcended all the fear and danger that he used to have in samsara, and he reached Nibbana while still alive, Saubhadisesa Nibbana, when living in a place called Roangkhod, in the Prao district of Chiang Mai province, in his 16th or 17th vassa. I cannot remember which, but I know that it was the beginning of the harvest time just after the end of the vassa period. He related all this in a manner which touched the heart one evening when we talked Dhamma together from 8 p.m. until after midnight, and nobody came to disturb us for the whole of this time. Because of this, we were able to talk Dhamma freely on both sides, right through to the final conclusion, which was the final result that arose from our practice of Dhamma. We started from the basic ABCs of our respective practices, which meant the basic training that we did, which was rather mixed up, at times slipping back and scrambling up again, at times falling into a bad state, or a state that alternated between bad and good, and sometimes getting into a state of satisfaction or dejection which resulted from the ups and downs of the practices which we used in our initial training. We then went on right through until we reached the ultimate and final point of the citta and of Dhamma of each of us. The result of our talk was very satisfactory, and I have taken the opportunity of including it in this book, so that those who read it and are interested in attaining Dhamma may use it as a field for investigation and contemplation, and then decide what is suitable in it for them to use depending on their own characteristics. The result, which is one's intended purpose, and which comes from such a discriminating choice, is likely to be a smooth and steady development that is right and appropriate, depending on how strongly one tries to do it. Because Venerable Ajaan Khao is completely qualified to be a source from which things of great value can arise for those in the world who frequently associate with him. He is neither deficient in his behavior, which he displays outwardly, nor in his inward knowing of the way of Dhamma, which is a diamond of the first water buried mysteriously within him. Such a thing cannot be found easily, and if one has not narrowly escaped death, one is not likely to be able to know it. I have secretly given him the name of Diamond of the First Water in the sphere of Gammartana, following the line from Venerable Ajaan Mun, for the last 30 years, without being afraid that people will call me mad, because this arose from my own faith. Venerable Ajaan Khao is still alive at present, Buddhist era 2520, Common era 1977, and spreads out metta and warmth to many bhikkhus and novices, as well as to lay people in all parts of Thailand who never stop going to pay homage and doing puja to him and to listen to his teaching. In his monastery, they realize the difficulties that he must put up with, for he is already very old, and they have had to arrange suitable times when people may visit him, pay homage to him, and listen to his teaching, so that he may have enough time to rest and recuperate and be of value to the world for a long time. Otherwise he may break up before he reaches his natural time. The receiving of visitors and the interaction between those bhikkhus who are acknowledged teachers and the many lay people who come from all over the place to visit them is in most cases very debilitating and somewhat of an ordeal for these teachers for the whole time while these visitors are with them. For these visitors come with all sorts of preconceived views and attitudes, and generally they are very anxious to get confirmation of what they want in their own hearts. They never think of the difficulties and the disturbance that they cause in the teacher's normal daily routine, which means that they are often more disturbed than the water in a well or pond. If the teacher shows no sympathy for them, they feel resentful and think that he dislikes them, that he is conceited and does not welcome guests as a bhikkhu should do, for the purpose of overcoming his conceit and his dislike of others. Moreover, they then build up a dislike of him within their hearts, and they spread this about telling everybody, which leads to endless harm. Those bhikkhus who should be praised and respected and who are of great value to the lay people may then become bhikkhus who are under accusation without any court that can try the case and pass judgment. The fact of the matter is that bhikkhus are ordained for the purpose of bringing benefit both to themselves and to the world, and not for remaining quiet, easygoing, and unconcerned. In any one day they do various different kinds of work at different times, and they rarely have any spare time, for they must find some time for helping the world in various ways. They must find time for helping the bhikkhus and novices who they are looking after, as well as other bhikkhus whom they chance to meet, and they must find time for looking after their own bodies and hearts, so that they may last long and continue to be of value to the world for a long time to come. Both by day and night, body and heart go round and round like a flywheel, with hardly any time left to rest and relax. When one thinks about it, even the machines which we use, such as motor cars, have a rest at times, or they need time off for maintenance and repair to keep them running properly. Otherwise they break down and deteriorate rapidly. Bhikkhus are not like stones and cement, which are mixed up together and used in various places in the construction of buildings and houses, as the chief builder or architect sees fit for his purpose. Therefore they are bound to get tired or exhausted, and they must have enough time to rest and relax from the strain of continued work, so that they can have some ease of body and heart. Generally, when lay people visit a bhikkhu, they are likely to come complete with their tendencies of character, pretensions, conceits, and problems quite uninhibited. So they make trouble for the bhikkhu by unloading their complaints and criticisms, expecting him to agree with them and to act accordingly, without ever considering whether it is morally right or wrong. This is due to their fundamental trait of having no interest in reason or morals, which are the first things that should be considered. Whenever any desire or want arises which requires the help of a bhikkhu, they never think how the ways and customs of bhikkhus and lay people differ, for the bhikkhus have the principles of Dhamma and Vinaya to guide and direct their actions. So the ways and customs of bhikkhus are the Dhamma and Vinaya which shows them what they should do, and they must always think of what is right or wrong, good or evil, and consider whether any proposed thing should or should not be done. But lay people have no Dhamma or Vinaya within them to act as a guiding principle to control their actions, and so, generally speaking, they tend to rely on what they like and want as their guide. Thus, when they try to get a bhikkhu involved in their affairs, he is quite likely to be troubled or harmed, even though they have no intention of doing this. Or he may be harmed indirectly by frequent requests, such as asking him to give them a number for the state lottery, which is an activity that conflicts with the bhikkhu's Dhamma and Vinaya, or by asking bhikkhus to make love potions which cause a man and woman to love each other, asking bhikkhus to tell them an auspicious time when they will have good luck and become wealthy, or for any one of 1,000 other purposes, asking bhikkhus to do their horoscope and to advise them about their affairs, asking for magic spells and sayings to make them invulnerable to bullets, knives, pointed weapons, and clubs, asking for holy water to be sprinkled on them to annul perils, dangers from enemies, and bad luck, and all sorts of other things such as these. For all these things conflict with the characteristics and customs, which means the Dhamma and Vinaya, of any bhikkhu who gives in to them, and the more he is an acharya, a teacher whom people respect and have faith in, the more he is troubled by all these things which we have just described, and all sorts of other things of the same kind which would take all day to describe. In particular, a Totanga bhikkhu who is intent on gaining understanding, Dhamma, and freedom, following the lineage of Venerable Ajaan, is not in the least interested in all these kinds of things. In fact, they look on them as being enemies to the right way of progress, and as things which increase the delusions of people. In the worst case, these things could lead to the destruction of the bhikkhu and of the religion, sasana, for all to see, if, for example, people started calling them lottery number bhikkhus and the lottery number religion, or love potion bhikkhus and religion, and the rest. This would make the bhikkhus and the religion seem disreputable, and it would cause its value to deteriorate steadily and inevitably. This is the kind of result that can come from doing these things. In all this that I have said above, I have no intention of blaming those good and faithful devotees of Dhamma, nor those who go to visit bhikkhus to search for Dhamma. But it is necessary to let people know what is the right form of behavior between bhikkhus and lay people who have never been completely separate from each other, and how they should act and relate together, so that both may have contentment and live without friction. This is how it should be, and it accords with their mutual good intentions and the interdependence that has always existed between them, and also the way that both sides are concerned about the promotion and well-being of Buddhism. It is important that we Buddhists should clearly understand that the monastery is an important place in the sphere of Buddhism. It is also an important place to all Buddhists who can hardly avoid having good and exalted thoughts arising within their hearts whenever they go into a monastery or go past one. This is because the monastery has always been a sacred place since the remote past, regardless of whether it is in the villages or forests. Because the monastery is the place where the citta and all things sacred come together, as well as arousing the good and high aspirations of endless Buddhists, leaving nowhere for them to leak away and deteriorate. The monastery may be run down and in a state of disrepair, or well appointed and beautiful, but in the hearts of those everywhere who have faith in Buddhism, there will be a constant attitude of respect and homage for it. For these reasons, whenever Buddhists go into a Buddhist monastery, and for whatever purpose, they should be self-controlled and make sure that their behavior is sufficiently modest and suitable. This also includes the clothes that people wear, and they should be very careful to make sure that they conform to their status as children of the Buddha who are going into a place which is high and sacred and which has been glorified by the Lord Buddha, the great teacher of the three worlds. This is especially important in the forest monastery, where bhikkhus are a bit like the monkeys and apes in the forest, who have never had the opportunity and fortune to have seen and learnt to admire the material progress and the latest cultural developments that have taken place in cities and towns. When they see people coming to the monastery wearing some of the latest fashions, they feel unusually disturbed and apprehensive, almost dizzy and feverish. It may also give them a sudden fright which they have not experienced before, because they are used to living in the forest until they have become part of it, and in such an environment it is not easy to imagine such things. So when they suddenly see such strange and unusual things, their eyes withdraw from Dhamma, and the citta displays an abnormal state which fluctuates unsteadily, and tends to induce a melancholy depression. Most forest Dhutanga bhikkhus say they have this same kind of reaction, and we should sympathize with them. Even if someone merely explains to them how the towns and villages have developed in material things and culture, and how they are developing all the time nowadays equally within the country as well as abroad, within the towns and in the countryside, in the village monasteries and those in the forest, and in normal places where people live, as well as in the forests and hills, they would most likely not believe it. In fact, they would probably just have a feeling of repugnance and loathing for it all, and a feeling of apprehension as well as dejection and sorrow, until the person who was telling them would be unable to find any way to cure the fear and horror that they feel. So it's a pity that they are so primitive and so far away from all this development and civilization. Isn't it? The monastery where Venerable Ajaan Khao stays is located in the forests and hills, a place that is well suited to the complete development of meditation and the practice of Dhamma, for it is full of boulders, cliffs, and forests with pleasant shady trees. It seems that Venerable Ajaan Khao always tried to avoid and evade all the accoutrements of civilization which we have already mentioned. If one were to call him uncivilized, like most of the Thutanga bhikkhus, it should not be considered as criticism, because his Dhamma quality is very exalted, and I feel that he has gone beyond all that should be deserving of criticism. But presumably he may still have the habits left within him of being very watchful and afraid of the dangers in the forest. For even though his Dhamma virtue is at the highest level, he will not have been able to let go of all his latent habitual tendencies. This may be in accordance with the Dhamma saying of the Lord that the original habitual tendencies cannot be entirely got rid of by the Sāvakas, and only the Lord Buddha was able to get rid of his latent habitual tendencies, nisaya, completely, as well as perfect his good characteristics, vasana. Whenever many people come causing a lot of disturbance with no good purpose or value in it, Venerable Ajaan Khao gets away quickly and disappears into the forest or into a crevice between the rocks of a hill in his monastery, until all has quieted down in the evening or after night has fallen, before returning to his residence. When he was asked why he escaped and disappeared in this way, he answered, saying, "My Dhamma is not much, and it cannot withstand the strong flowing current of the world, and I have to run away and hide. If I did not do this, but stayed and put up with it, my Dhamma would surely break up and disintegrate, so I must go wherever I can look after myself. For even though I do not have the ability to help these people, I should at least think about helping myself." To the best of my knowledge, Venerable Ajaan Khao has a lot of metta and generally gives a great deal of help to other people. But on those occasions when he escapes and goes into hiding, it is probably because it is beyond his ability to put up with them, as he himself has said. Those who cause trouble and harm are the majority of people, though whether they do it intentionally or not is hard to know, but they do so continually. As for those who try to uphold and maintain sila, dhamma, and virtue, they are few, and they are hardly able to withstand the burden of doing so, and are normally bound to run into many difficulties. Generally speaking, lay people tend to watch the bhikkhus much more than themselves. When they go to a place where they should have faith and pay respect, their manner and speech tends to be quite offensive in the eyes and ears of an observer. It makes those bhikkhus who are observant realize how it is their habitual tendency to let themselves go without restraint and carelessly, while having no thought for how they might appear to other people, or how it is with themselves. This is what makes it difficult.